Before we start today's story, please let us know your location in the comment section and don't forget to like and subscribe. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Evan Hart's home office, illuminating the sleek, modernist furniture and walls lined with architectural awards. At 42, Evan stood tall behind his desk, his 6 feet 2 inches frame a testament to years of pre-dawn workouts that balanced his demanding career. His steel-gray eyes remained fixed on his wife, Tessa, who paced in front of him, her movements those of someone who had rehearsed this moment. "Aren't you going to say anything?" Tessa's voice was sharp with irritation. She had expected tears, rage, or even pleading, but Evan's composed silence threw her off balance. About what, specifically? Evan's tone was neutral, his gaze steady as he observed her expensive designer outfit, paid for with his credit card just last week. "The affair with Caleb? Or the attempted theft of my designs?" he asked, his words cold but precise. Tessa faltered for just a moment before recovering, tossing her perfectly styled dark hair. "Oh, so you know about Caleb. Good. That makes this easier." Her red lips curled into a cruel smile. "Your brother's everything you're not. Bigger, stronger, more satisfying." Evan's expression remained unchanged as he noted the slight tremor in her hand, the tell she'd had since they first met 15 years ago, the one that appeared whenever she was bluffing at poker. "Is that all?" he asked, his voice still measured. Tessa's tone rose an octave. "I'm leaving you for your twin brother, and that's your response? Is that all?" She closed the gap between them, her Jimmy Choo heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. "Caleb's promised me a huge share of your family's engineering firm. We're moving into his beach house, the one with the ocean view you could never afford because you were too busy being ethical with your projects." Evan's lips twitched slightly, his gaze sharp. "The same beach house he bought with embezzled company funds? Interesting choice." Tessa's facade cracked momentarily, but she quickly rallied. "You're lying. You're just jealous because Caleb knows how to enjoy life, while you spend every waking moment obsessing over your precious bridges." "My precious bridges," Evan echoed, his voice dry. "Paid for everything you're wearing." His gaze flicked to her left hand, including the sapphire ring Caleb had given her just last month. "The one you thought I hadn't noticed." Tessa instinctively covered her left hand with her right. "My parents have already blessed our relationship. They understand Caleb's the son who should have been running the company all along. They're just too afraid to say it publicly," Tessa continued, her tone smug. Evan turned to his computer, effectively dismissing her. "If that's all, you can go. I have work to finish." "Work?" Tessa spat, the word dripping with disdain. "Your precious earthquake-resistant bridge design. Caleb says it's fundamentally flawed anyway. You're pathetic, Evan. A pathetic workaholic who doesn't know how to satisfy a woman or enjoy life. Caleb's twice the man you are." "Interesting theory," Evan replied, his fingers clicking over the keyboard as he typed. The soft sound of the keys emphasized his indifference. "Close the door on your way out." Tessa lingered for a moment, her carefully planned confrontation unraveling in the face of Evan's composure. Finally, she spun on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door so hard that it rattled the awards on the wall. Evan waited 5 minutes after her departure, listening to her car start and drive away. Only then did he open his secure email and send a pre-written message to his contact at the FBI's white-collar crime division. Later that evening, as he sat in his private study with a glass of single malt untouched beside him, Evan watched the silent footage from the security cameras. Despite the darkness, the infrared cameras provided perfect clarity. He reviewed months of recorded betrayal. February 14th, Caleb and Tessa entering his home office at 2 a.m. using a key Evan had never authorized. March 3rd, Caleb photographing documents on Evan's desk while Tessa kept watch. On April 17th, the footage revealed both of them accessing Evan's computer. Tessa distracted him with a phone call about a supposed manufacturing crisis, while Caleb installed something on the hard drive. Evan had installed the security system after a series of break-ins at properties containing valuable engineering plants. He told everyone it was simple paranoia, but in reality, he had noticed the subtle signs months ago. Tessa's unexplained absences, Caleb's sudden interest in his current projects, and the way certain files on his computer had been accessed while he was away at conferences. The footage confirmed every suspicion. His twin brother wasn't just sleeping with his wife. They were working together to steal his breakthrough bridge design, one that could revolutionize construction in earthquake zones. A knock on the study door interrupted his viewing. Evan checked the security panel. It was Vivian Taylor, his friend of 20 years and the firm's legal counsel. Her usual confident posture was missing, replaced by nervous energy that radiated through the camera feed. "Come in, Vivian," Evan said, not bothering to stand as she entered, noting the way she clutched her designer handbag like a shield. "Evan, I need to tell you something," Vivian said, her voice tight. She remained standing, her knuckles white around the bag's leather strap. "It's about Caleb. Let me save you some time." Evan turned his monitor so she could see the footage. "6 months ago, Caleb approached you about transferring my patents to a shell company he created. You agreed to help him, despite knowing it was illegal and a violation of your ethical obligations as my attorney." Vivian's face drained of color. "How did you know?" Evan's smile was cold. "I've known for months. I just wanted to see how far you'd all go." "The answer is pretty far, it seems." "Evan, please let me explain," Vivian began, her voice faltering. "Caleb said it was what your parents wanted, that they were worried about your mental state. He had documents, fake documents." Evan's voice remained calm, but Vivian instinctively stepped back. "Save your explanations, Vivian. You can show yourself out and expect to hear from the Bar Association first thing tomorrow morning." "You can't do this to me." Vivian's composure cracked, her voice breaking. "I've been your friend for 20 years. I was at your wedding." "Yes, you were." Evan turned back to his monitor, his tone unflinching. "Which makes your betrayal particularly interesting from a legal and ethics perspective. I'm sure the disciplinary board will find it fascinating." He didn't look up as he said, "Close the door on your way out." Vivian stood frozen for a moment, her mouth working silently, before she fled the study. Evan waited until he heard her car pull away before reaching for his phone. A few taps brought up a secure messaging app. "Everything proceeding as expected," he typed. "Initiate phase 2 tomorrow morning." The response came immediately, "FBI team standing by. Operation begins at 0900. Evan finally reached for his whiskey, taking a small sip as he thought about the next day's board meeting. His parents and Caleb would be there, undoubtedly prepared to force him into a leave of absence. They had no idea they were walking into a trap he had been setting for years. His phone buzzed again. It was Tessa calling, probably to make more dramatic declarations. Evan silenced it without a second glance. In the morning, everyone who had betrayed him would learn exactly who they had underestimated. For now, he had more security footage to review. The Hart Engineering Group's downtown offices occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming skyscraper, a building Evan had helped design early in his career. He arrived 10 minutes before the scheduled 10 a.m. board meeting, his charcoal suit impeccable, his demeanor unhurried. The executive conference room fell silent as he entered. Robert and Eleanor Hart, Evan's parents, sat at the head of the table, with Caleb beside them. The 3 froze when they saw him, guilt and surprise written on their faces. Robert recovered first, his official warmth failing to mask his unease. "We didn't expect you today, considering the situation with Tessa. We thought you might take some time off." Evan set his briefcase on the table with deliberate care. "Before we discuss my marriage, I think we should address some company business. Specifically, the unauthorized access to my designs, the attempted patent theft, and the shell company Caleb created to sell my work to our competitors." Caleb shot to his feet, his expensive suit failing to hide his soft physique. "You're lying. Mother, father, he's obviously having some kind of breakdown. This is exactly what I warned you about." "Interesting response," Evan said calmly, removing a thick folder from his briefcase. "Usually, innocent people ask what evidence exists, rather than immediately shouting denials. Would you like to see the evidence, Caleb?" "I have quite a lot." Vivian, sitting at the table, interjected. "I'm sure this is all a misunderstanding. Caleb's been nothing but concerned about you. Working such long hours, becoming so paranoid about security." "The FBI doesn't think it's a misunderstanding," Evan replied, checking his watch. "In fact, they're very interested in corporate espionage cases. They should be here any minute." As if on cue, the conference room doors opened, and 2 men in dark suits entered, followed by a team of FBI agents wearing jackets. One of the agents stepped forward, holding up a bag. "I'm Special Agent Nelson. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of corporate espionage, wire fraud, and embezzlement." "This is ridiculous." Caleb backed away from the table. "Father, do something." Robert stood, his face purple with rage. "Evan, stop this immediately. He's your brother." "Was my brother," Evan replied coolly. "Now he's just another corporate criminal about to face federal charges. I'd advise everyone to cooperate fully with the investigation. Agent Nelson's team will need access to all company records." "You can't do this." Caleb's voice cracked as agents approached him. "Mother, tell him." Caleb pleaded, but Eleanor, tears in her eyes, turned to Evan. "Please, sweetheart, he's your twin. We can work this out as a family." "Family," Evan repeated, his smile cold. Interesting word choice, given recent events. Agent Nelson, I believe you'll find the evidence particularly interesting. The records are in the folder on the table. The agents led Caleb away in handcuffs, his protests echoing down the hallway. Robert and Eleanor sat in stunned silence as FBI agents began setting up equipment around them. Evan stood up, adjusting his cuffs. One more thing, he said. Given the current situation, I've called an emergency board meeting for noon. We'll need to discuss the leadership transition. I suggest everyone review the bylaws before then, particularly the sections regarding the removal of officers involved in criminal activities. Without another word, he walked out, leaving his parents to face the consequences of their actions. His phone buzzed again, Tessa, likely having heard about Caleb's arrest, but Evan silenced it without a second glance. The day wasn't over yet. By nightfall, everyone who had betrayed him would understand exactly who they had crossed. Evan allowed himself a small smile as he entered his private office, closing the door on the chaos behind him. The real work was just beginning. The news of Caleb Hart's arrest spread quickly throughout Hart Engineering Group. Employees gathered in hushed clusters, their smartphones buzzing with updates as FBI agents methodically worked their way through the building's top 3 floors. Dean Langley, watching from his corner office, saw agents carrying boxes of documents past his door. At 55, Dean had spent decades managing projects for the firm, growing increasingly resentful of Evan Hart's meteoric rise. Now, with Caleb in custody and chaos erupting, he saw his opportunity. Evan's phone lit up with an incoming call from Tessa Hart, now Tessa Bowen, having reverted to her maiden name just hours after Caleb's arrest. Tell me you have something we can use. Tessa's voice carried a sharp edge of desperation beneath her usual arrogance. Dean smiled, running a hand through his thinning hair. Better than that. I've got proof Evan's been making critical errors in his calculations. Errors that could bring down entire buildings. Are you sure? Because we need something solid. Caleb's lawyers are useless, and his parents are in complete shock. Trust me. Dean pulled up a file labeled Hart Evan Edits.pdf on his computer. I've been documenting his mistakes for months. Once the board sees this, they'll have no choice but to remove him. I've already scheduled an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Perfect, Tessa said, her smile audible. Caleb says Evan's always been unstable, brilliant, but prone to paranoid delusions. Once we prove he's making dangerous mistakes, the FBI investigation will look like a mental breakdown. Dean finished the thought. And the board will need someone experienced to step in and restore stability. Someone like you. Tessa's tone turned sweet. I'm sure Caleb would be very grateful for your help once this misunderstanding is cleared up. Dean ended the call, satisfaction warming his chest. He'd waited years to see Evan Hart fall, and now, with carefully manufactured evidence and some strategic alterations to project files, he'd be the one to push him out. Meanwhile, Evan sat in his home office, reviewing security footage from cameras he had installed years ago. Precautionary measures his paranoid reputation had made easy to justify. On his screen, he saw Dean Langley finishing his call with Tessa, unaware that every word had been recorded. A soft knock interrupted his viewing. Enter. Lila Park, his executive assistant of 8 years, stepped inside, her usual professional demeanor tinged with concern. The PR team needs your response to the press inquiries, and Mr. Langley has called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Evan's lips curled into a slight smile. What's the stated agenda? Questions about project safety and leadership stability. Lila hesitated. There are also rumors circulating about your mental health. Mr. Langley's assistant mentioned something about documentation of errors. I'm sure he did. Evan turned his monitor to show Lila multiple video feeds. How long have you known about Dean's monthly meetings with our competitors? Lila's eyes widened as she watched Dean shaking hands with executives from rival firms in various hotel lobbies and restaurants. Is that why the C projects kept falling behind schedule? Delayed projects mean extended contracts. Extended contracts mean more opportunities for kickbacks, Evan explained, forwarding several files to his secure server. The FBI will be very interested in Mr. Langley's offshore accounts. Should I cancel tomorrow's board meeting? No, Evan replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let Dean have his moment. Just make sure every board member receives this folder of evidence 10 minutes after he starts his presentation. Lila nodded, her respect for Evan deepening. And the PR statement? No comment on ongoing investigations. Standard response, Evan said, turning back to his monitors. And Lila, thank you for never taking Caleb's bribes to spy on me. He tried 3 times. Lila responded crisply, I recorded all 3 attempts. I know. Evan's tone softened. That's why you're the only person in this company I trust completely. After Lila left, Evan didn't return to his surveillance feeds. Across town, Tessa was holding court at an exclusive restaurant, loudly discussing her soon-to-be ex-husband's mental state with anyone who would listen. He's been getting worse for years. Her voice came clearly through the restaurant's security system, which Evan had accessed months ago. Caleb tried to warn everyone, but no one would listen. Now look what he's done to his own brother. Evan switched feeds to the county jail's visitor area, where Caleb sat in an orange jumpsuit, his usual swagger replaced by barely contained panic. You don't understand, Caleb was saying to their parents. I was trying to protect the company from him. He's not stable. Don't worry, darling. Eleanor Hart patted her imprisoned son's hand. We'll fix this. Your father is calling in every favor he has. Evan closed the feed and glanced at his watch. In 12 hours, Dean Langley would present his fabricated evidence to the board. In 13 hours, Dean's career and freedom would be over. And that would only be the beginning. The next morning, the Hart Engineering Group's main boardroom was packed. Board members whispered among themselves as Dean Langley connected his laptop to the presentation system, his confidence evident in every movement. Evan sat quietly at the far end of the table, his expression neutral as he observed his project manager preparing to destroy him. Tessa had chosen a seat near the front, her designer outfit and flawless makeup a stark contrast to her red-rimmed eyes that had been perfectly dry in the restaurant security footage from the night before. Thank you all for coming, Dean began, his voice grave. What I'm about to show you is difficult but necessary for the safety of our company and our clients. The first slide appeared, displaying a complex set of calculations with key sections highlighted in red. These are from Evan Hart's earthquake-resistant bridge design, Dean continued. As you can see, there are critical errors in the stress load calculations, errors that could result in catastrophic failure. Evan watched as board members leaned forward, frowning at the technical data. He noted who nodded along, marking them for future reference. This isn't an isolated incident. Dean clicked to the next slide. I've documented a pattern of increasingly serious mistakes over the past year, combined with Mr. Hart's recent paranoid behavior, launching federal investigations against his own brother. Mr. Langley, Evan's voice cut through the room. Could you explain why the timestamp on that document shows it was modified last night at 11:47 p.m.? Dean faltered for a moment. I was simply formatting. Interesting, Evan nodded to Lila, who began distributing folders to each board member. You might want to hold your questions until everyone has had a chance to review these materials. The room fell silent as board members opened their folders. Tessa craned her neck, trying to see the contents, her composure cracking as she watched faces shift from confusion to shock to anger. Mr. Langley, the head of the board, looked up from his folder. Would you care to explain these bank transfers and these emails arranging kickbacks from contractors? That's not. Dean's face turned gray. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Evan said calmly. Evan's paranoid accusations are supported by extensive documentation. Documentation, Evan continued, that's already been provided to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. They should be arriving right about now. As if on cue, the boardroom door opened, and 2 FBI agents stepped inside. The lead agent, Dean Langley, held up his badge. We need you to come with us. This is insane. Dean backed away from the table. Tessa, tell them about Evan's state. But Tessa was already moving toward the door, her facade of concern now replaced by naked fear as she realized how completely they had underestimated Evan. Mrs. Hart, the second agent called after her, please remain available. We'll have questions about your role in these events. Evan watched silently as Dean was led away in handcuffs, his protests echoing down the hallway, just as Caleb's had the day before. The board members sat in stunned silence, still processing the evidence of years of fraud and kickbacks. Now then, Evan stood, straightening his tie. Shall we discuss the real state of our projects? I believe you'll find all calculations are precisely accurate and backed up by independent verification. The following week brought a fresh wave of chaos to Hart Engineering Group. Evan sat in his office, reviewing reports as Lila provided updates on the fallout. Dean Langley's arrest made the industry papers, and his confession implicated 3 other project managers and 2 competing firms. The FBI was expanding their investigation. My parents are still trying to arrange Caleb's release, Lila hesitated. But there's something you should see. She handed him a tablet displaying internal company documents. I found these while organizing the digital archives. They're shared transfer agreements from 5 years ago. Your parents secretly transferred 15% of the company to Caleb. Evan studied the documents, his expression unchanged. Did they really think I wouldn't discover this? There's more. Lila pulled up additional files. I cross-referenced the dates with their tax returns. The transfers weren't properly reported, and I found evidence of other tax irregularities going back a decade. Evan forwarded the files to a secure address. The IRS would be very interested in this information. Should I schedule a meeting with your parents to discuss the transfers? Lila asked. No need, Evan replied, turning back to his computer. They'll have more pressing concerns very soon. Lila nodded, understanding the dismissal, but before leaving, she paused. Tessa's been trying to reach you. She claims she has new information about Caleb's activities. I'm sure she does, Evan replied, his tone devoid of emotion. Direct all her calls to the FBI's tip line. After Lila left, Evan opened his private email. Within hours, an anonymous tip would reach the IRS, detailing his parents' tax evasion. By the end of the week, their carefully maintained reputation would begin to crumble. His phone buzzed. It was Tessa again, this time with a text. Please, Evan, we need to talk. I know things about Caleb you need to hear. Evan added the number to his block list without responding. On his screen, security footage showed Tessa pacing in her hotel room, makeup streaked with genuine tears. Her world was collapsing. A soft chime indicated an incoming email from his FBI contact. Second round of arrests scheduled for tomorrow. Surveillance confirms target locations. Proceed as discussed. Evan typed back, proceed. He'd waited years to dismantle the corruption in his family's company. Now, piece by piece, every betrayal would be answered. Later that night, Evan's home security system pinged with an alert. The camera showed two figures approaching his house. Caleb, apparently released on bail, and Tessa, both moving with the clumsy urgency of desperate people. Evan watched from his study as they used Tessa's key to enter his home office. Neither noticed the silent alarm that had already alerted the police, nor the cameras recording their every move. Find the designs, Caleb, Tessa ordered, her voice tense, her prison stay evident in her disheveled appearance. If we can destroy the originals before the FBI processes all the evidence. They're not in the safe, Tessa continued, pulling open drawers frantically. Wait here. Caleb grabbed the papers, starting to shred them by hand in his haste. Once these are gone, it'll be our word against his about the theft. We can still spin this as his paranoid breakdown. The office door slammed shut with an electronic buzz, and both intruders spun around as lights flooded the room. Police. Hands where we can see them. Evan observed through the cameras as Caleb and Tessa were handcuffed. Their faces shifted from shock to horror as they realized the designs they destroyed were obvious decoys. The real plans had been secured off-site months ago, along with backup copies of all the evidence against them. His phone lit up with a call from the police sergeant. Mr. Hart, we've apprehended 2 intruders. Would you like to press charges? The FBI will want to add this to their existing case, Evan replied calmly. I'll have my security footage sent over immediately. He ended the call, watching as Caleb and Tessa were led to separate police cars. Their betrayal had been complete, and now so was their downfall. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but his parents would soon face their own reckoning. Vivian's disbarment proceedings would begin, and the company would need restructuring after the arrests. But for now, Evan allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. In trying to destroy him, his enemies had destroyed themselves, and he had orchestrated every moment of their fall. The federal courthouse loomed against the morning sky as Caleb Hart was led inside, his designer suit replaced by prison orange, his usual swagger reduced to shuffling steps and shackles. The media gathered outside, cameras flashing as reporters shouted questions about corporate espionage and embezzlement. Special Agent Nelson stood with Evan in an observation room, watching through the one-way glass as Caleb was seated for questioning. 3 months of investigation had uncovered far more than the initial patent theft. Your brother's been busy, Nelson said, reviewing his files. We've traced over $12 million in embezzled funds. That beach house? Built entirely with company money, laundered through shell corporations. Evan watched as Caleb fidgeted, his handcuffs clinking against the metal table. How long? Evan asked, his voice flat. Given the scope of the crimes? 10 years minimum. The corporate espionage charges alone. Nelson glanced at Evan. He's offering to testify against your parents in exchange for leniency. Of course he is, Evan replied, his smile cold. Always trying to save himself at someone else's expense. The interrogation room door swung open as Caleb's latest lawyer, the third since his arrest, entered, carrying a thick folder filled with plea agreements. Caleb's face brightened with desperate hope, but that hope quickly faded as the FBI's financial crimes investigators began presenting their evidence: bank records, wire transfers, emails, and security footage. It was a meticulously assembled case that had started with Evan's initial evidence, and expanded into something much larger. Your brother's crying, Nelson observed. Evan turned away from the observation window. Send me the transcript when you're done. I have a meeting to attend. Meanwhile, Tessa Bowen paced the marble floors of her attorney's office, her high heels clicking with every anxious step. Her perfectly composed appearance was showing cracks, smudged mascara, chipped nail polish, and last season's designer clothes. This is ridiculous, she snapped, slamming divorce papers onto the mahogany desk. He's trying to leave me with nothing. After 15 years of marriage. Her lawyer, a tired woman in her 50s, sighed. Mrs. Hart. Miss Bowen, Tessa interrupted. I've gone back to my maiden name. The lawyer spread her hands. Given the evidence of your involvement in Mr. Caleb Hart's crimes, as well as the documented infidelity, you're lucky Mr. Hart isn't pursuing criminal charges. Lucky? Tessa laughed, her voice tinged with hysteria. Caleb's facing prison. His beach house has been seized, and I'm supposed to feel lucky? You committed adultery with your husband's twin brother while assisting him in stealing intellectual property worth millions. The lawyer's tone grew firmer. The prenuptial agreement clearly states that infidelity voids all claims to marital assets. You should take this settlement offer before. Before what? Tessa leaned forward, desperation creeping into her voice. I know things about Evan. Things that could hurt him. Tell him I want to meet. Tell him I can help him understand why all this happened. The lawyer stood up. Mr. Hart's instructions are very clear. All communication goes through counsel. Now, shall we review the settlement terms again? Tessa sank into a chair, her composure finally cracking. I never thought he was always so quiet, so focused on his work. I never thought he could what? Fight back? The lawyer gathered the divorce papers. You have 24 hours to accept these terms. After that, Mr. Hart will proceed with full litigation and release all evidence of your criminal activities to the prosecutors. Tessa's hands trembled as she reached for the papers. Outside the office windows, rain began to fall. Meanwhile, Evan stood at his office window, watching storm clouds gather over the city. Behind him, Lila was organizing files on his desk, updating him on the day's developments. The board has approved the leadership transition plan, Lila reported. With your parents facing tax evasion charges and Mr. Langley's criminal activities exposed, they're eager to show accountability. The bridge project, independent auditors have verified all calculations, and construction begins next month. Lila paused, then added, there's one more thing. Tessa tried to reach you again. Evan turned away from the window. Through her lawyer? No, Lila replied. She came to the office. Security escorted her out. She was emotional, said she needed to explain that you didn't understand why things happened this way. Did she? Evan's voice was neutral. Send the security footage to her attorney. It'll be useful when we file the restraining order. Lila nodded, but then hesitated. Your parents called too. They're facing criminal charges for tax evasion, and the IRS has frozen their assets. They're asking for help. Evan's expression remained unchanged. Interesting timing, he said, sitting at his desk and reviewing construction permits. They weren't interested in my help when they were transferring shares to Caleb. Should I respond? Lila asked. No need, Evan replied. Their new reality is not my concern. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Hart, the FBI agents are here for your final statement. Evan straightened his tie. Send them in. Special Agent Nelson entered, flanked by two colleagues carrying files stamped with federal seals. Mr. Hart, we've completed our investigation into Caleb's activities, Nelson began. The results: 10 years minimum for the corporate espionage and fraud charges. The embezzlement investigation is ongoing, but we've traced funds back nearly a decade. Nelson placed a document on Evan's desk. We'll need your statement about when you first noticed discrepancies. Evan signed where indicated, his signature precise and controlled. Will there be a trial? He asked. No, Nelson replied. He's accepting a plea deal. 10 years federal time, full restitution, and cooperation in ongoing investigations, Nelson said as he collected the signed papers. Caleb tried to implicate you in some schemes, claiming you were mentally unstable, but the evidence proved otherwise. Evan stood up. Will you need anything else? That's all. Thank you for your cooperation. Nelson paused at the door. Mr. Hart, I've worked in financial crimes for 20 years, and I've never seen anyone document their enemy's activities this thoroughly. You knew this was coming, didn't you? Evan's smile didn't reach his eyes. I believe in being prepared, Agent Nelson. Good day. After the FBI left, Evan returned to his window. The storm clouds had broken, and sunlight was streaming over the city. He would help rebuild. His phone buzzed. It was Tessa again, leaving a tearful voicemail. He deleted it without listening. On his desk, architectural plans for his revolutionary bridge design awaited his final approval. The future belonged to those who planned for it. 1 year later, Evan stood before a crowd of reporters and dignitaries. Sunlight glinted off the sweeping curves of his completed bridge. The structure was a marvel of engineering, and its earthquake-resistant design was already being studied by universities worldwide. "Mr. Hart," a reporter called out, "how does it feel to see your design become reality?" Evan gazed at the bridge, which had cost his betrayers everything. "It feels like justice." The ceremony proceeded smoothly. Politicians made speeches, ribbons were cut, and photographers captured the moment. His design was officially open to the public. None of the speeches mentioned Caleb, who was serving his sentence in federal prison, or Tessa, who had fled across the country after accepting a harsh divorce settlement. No one spoke of his parents, now living in obscurity after their financial crimes were exposed, or Vivian, disbarred for her ethical violations. Evan had methodically dismantled their lives while building his greatest achievement. The bridge would stand for generations, while those who had betrayed him had fallen into well-deserved ruin. As the celebrations continued around him, Evan allowed himself a small smile. He had emerged stronger, wiser, and utterly victorious. His revenge, like his engineering, had been a masterwork of precision and planning. The bridge stretched before him, a monument to the price of betrayal and the power of patience, intelligence, and carefully planned retribution. 5 years later, the story of Evan Hart's revenge had become legendary in engineering circles. It was whispered in boardrooms and discussed in ethics classes at prestigious universities, not as a warning against betrayal, but as a lesson in underestimating quiet men who kept meticulous records and planned for every contingency. Now 46, Evan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, which occupied the entire top floor of Hart Engineering Group's headquarters. His presence commanded even more respect than before. Silver had threaded through his temples, and victory had added a sharp edge to his success. Under his leadership, the company had tripled in size, and his revolutionary bridge design had spawned a new era in earthquake-resistant architecture. Lila Park, now Chief Operations Officer, entered with the morning briefing. After proving her loyalty during the crisis, she had become his most trusted executive. "The latest report on Caleb," she began, pulling up details on her tablet. "His third appeal was denied. He still has 5 years left on his sentence, assuming good behavior, which, according to his prison records, isn't happening." Evan's reflection smiled slightly in the glass. "Is his cellmate still feeding him regular updates?" "Yes," Lila confirmed. "Caleb spends most of his days in the prison library, writing long letters to industry contacts. No one responds anymore. He even tried to publish a memoir claiming he was framed, but no publisher would touch it after our legal team reached out." Lila paused, then added, "Tessa's working as a real estate agent in Phoenix." Her third attempt at a luxury lifestyle comeback failed when potential clients kept finding news articles about her role in the corporate espionage. She tried to date another wealthy executive last month, but our anonymous tip about her past ended that quickly, Lila said with evident satisfaction. The divorce settlement's ironclad terms prevent her from profiting from any tell-all books or interviews. She's now living in a one-bedroom apartment, driving a 10-year-old Ford. Evan turned from the window. "My parents are still in that small condo in Florida. My father's attempts to consult for engineering firms keep failing. Apparently, no one wants tax evaders advising their projects. And my mother?" The bridge club kicked her out after the third time she tried to defend Caleb's innocence. "Well, Vivian's doing as well as could be expected," Lila added. "She's working as a paralegal in Nebraska after her disbarment. She tried to apply for readmission to the bar last year, but the ethics committee received an anonymous package detailing her involvement in the patent theft attempt." Lila smiled. "The application was denied." Evan nodded, satisfaction evident in his posture. "And the company stocks are up 300% since I took full control. The Hart method of earthquake-resistant design is now being taught in engineering schools worldwide. We've secured contracts on 3 continents, and Engineering Monthly named me the most innovative structural engineer of the century." Lila checked her notes. "Also, Caleb's beach house, the one the FBI seized, we bought it at auction for pennies on the dollar. Demolition starts next week. The land will be donated to the city for a public park, which will be named after your bridge design." Evan's smile widened slightly. The property's destruction would be filmed, and the footage sent to Caleb's prison cell, a final, small reminder of the price of betrayal. "The industry dinner is tonight," Lila reminded him. "They're presenting you with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Several board members suggested you might want to mention reconciliation with your family in your speech. Maybe show forgiveness." "Interesting suggestion," Evan replied, adjusting his custom suit. Especially for men who kept their positions only by proving they hadn't known about Caleb's crimes. Lila's phone buzzed. Update from Phoenix. Tessa just lost another job after her employer discovered her history. She's asking her lawyer to contact you about revising the divorce terms. The standard response has already been sent, Evan said. All terms are final as per Section 8.3 of the agreement. Lila hesitated. She included a note saying she misses you, that she's changed. Evan's laugh was devoid of warmth. After 5 years, she still thinks emotional manipulation might work. Forward the note to her therapist, the one the investigators found she's been lying to about her recovery. Lila nodded, making a note of it. One last thing, about that junior engineer you promoted last month. The background check revealed he's been sharing project details with a competitor. Evan smiled coldly. Handled it. Anonymous evidence has been sent to the competitor's board showing he was playing both sides. He'll be fired this afternoon, and the official announcement will cite ethical concerns. Fitting, considering he tried to play the same game as Caleb. Lila's smile mirrored Evan's in its chill. The company's ethical compliance training now includes a section on corporate loyalty. Your story is required reading for every new hire. Not the official version, of course, but the whispered one. The one about what happens to people who betray Evan Hart. Evan checked his watch. The award ceremony's waiting. The car's downstairs. You're giving the keynote on building foundations of trust. Lila's tone carried a note of appreciation. How fitting, considering the irony. The industry journal wanted to run another profile, focusing on how Evan had transformed personal betrayal into professional triumph. Approve it, he said. Evan gathered his materials, making sure they included a mention of Caleb's current location, the one with the bars on the windows. As they headed to the elevator, Lila glanced at her tablet one final time. Update from the prison. Caleb tried to join the engineering education program, but the warden denied his application after receiving an anonymous letter detailing his corporate espionage history. Evan's only response was a subtle nod. 5 years had passed, and still, his revenge was unfolding precisely as planned. Each quiet turn of the wheel had diminished his betrayers a little more. The elevator descended toward the waiting car. Tonight, he would accept yet another award. His success was now a constant reminder to everyone who had underestimated him. His parents would watch the ceremony from their modest Florida condo. Caleb would read about it in his prison cell. Tessa would see it on social media as she floundered in her attempts to rebuild her life. Vivian would file it away in the legal documents she now processed instead of writing. And Evan? He would continue to build his empire, his reputation for brilliance growing, matched only by the whispered warnings to never cross the quiet man who plans in silence and strikes without mercy. The elevator reached the lobby. Evan straightened his tie, ready to accept another accolade while his enemies continued to pay their perpetual penance. What he had learned was that the sweetest revenge wasn't just about destroying those who had betrayed him. It was about thriving while they withered. It was about building monuments while they languished in obscurity. It was about ensuring that every day of their lives served as a reminder of the morning they thought they could destroy Evan Hart, never realizing that they were merely laying the foundation for their own destruction. Lila held the car door open for him. Evan smiled, the expression as calculated and precise as every blueprint he had ever drawn. The car pulled away from the curb, carrying him toward another triumph. Meanwhile, somewhere in a prison cell, a small apartment, a Florida condo, and a Nebraska legal office, his betrayers faced another day of living with the consequences of underestimating a quiet man who turned revenge into an art form. Their betrayal had cost them everything. His revenge had given him the world. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.